Hello. Yeah, Patrick and I are in here chit-chatting on our own with, letting them sing us in. We got to let Ridgetop Ramblers sing us in every now and then. And just, we love them so much, and we appreciate them so much letting us have that song for, just one street over to me is just the perfect song for something like this, because we're just, find out what's going on, and, one street over from where you live in here in Robertson County. Because none of us know enough about what's happening with our neighbors. And I used to be so much better than that, and I'm terrible now. I know a handful of the people that live on my street, but most of them I don't.
Right.
Patrick Nix is in the house, Flu Ellen, and Flu Ellen Baptist Church, Flu Ellen Church. And that was kind of part of the conversation we were having just a second ago. And I told him, I said, I know Rachel Culver usually comes in on the third Friday. I do a lot of stuff with the girls. We have the girls because we are very intentional on Friday. We try to keep it all faith driven because we do, we talk with Mayor Vogel and Ryan Martin, and we talk with all the different, officials, and Danny Weeks, our director of schools, and we talk with law enforcement. We talk with military. We do all those things during the week.
Right.
But we like to be real intentional on Friday and just kind of do, just make sure we get some Jesus on you, because this is a Christian broadcast company. We want to make sure and do that. And Rachel had cataract surgery, and she's doing fabulous. But she goes, remember, I can't be in tomorrow. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I said, I bet Patrick can.
Oh, no. I'm supposed to be Rachel today?
You're supposed to be Rachel today.
Oh, my goodness.
But I love talking to you, and I would love to have you in here as a recurring guest, because you and I just have some fun conversations. We had the conversation about his book on Philemon, which I just love.
Right.
I just was so, when you said it's one of the most, how did you put it when you said, because you kind of teased it for me, you said it's one of the most underappreciated books, maybe.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he must be talking about Philemon. And you were like, yeah, as a matter of fact. And I just love that.
Yeah.
That means we're on the same,
sure.
We're on the same wavelength with that. And that's, you got to get his book, we'll say right now. And I flipped through it. I haven't been able to sit down and really read it yet, but we talked a lot about the content, and it's so good. And you can get it on Amazon, right? Mm-hmm. You can get it on Amazon. How's it doing? Are you selling some books?
Well, I think I made 28 cents last month on royalty.
Okay. That's okay.
I'm not,
I know.
I didn't do it for that. I
yes,
just did it. You do things like that, and it's just like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm just doing it because the Lord says do it,
That's
at the moment.
Exactly. I wrote one years ago, and it's never really done anything, but it's really just to make sure that where my head was at the time is documented for my kids and for my grandkids. It's really for them, so they understand the era of some. They understand me a little bit better and what made me tick. And so I just think it's important to set those things down. And we were talking a little bit about theology. I think I just value so much things that were written by my parents, my grandparents, because especially from a religious studies perspective, because I see the theology and how it's going to, our understanding, truth doesn't change.
Yep.
Our understanding of truth does get deeper and more complete, I think. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah, through time, revelation has, or understanding of revelation has definitely increased.
Yeah.
Sometimes we go through periods culturally in a micro level where the context can actually weaken, not strengthen.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
And so, sometimes we go through seasons like that. You read, 200 years ago, I ordered a book last night, William Wilberforce's book, about the contrast between real Christianity and what he saw in their middle and upper class practical Christianity, and how divided it was. Especially on the issue of slavery and some of the things.
In what era was that written?
Abolition.
Yeah, so that's from
Pre-slavery.
that period of time?
Yep.
Wow.
And so,
that'd be an interesting read.
Yeah, I'm excited about reading
it.
I read the title to my wife, and the title is like 3 sentences long. And Joy's like, take me to the dentist and pull my teeth out before I have to read that.
Oh, see, I would get into that. I would get into that. I think that'd be fascinating.
So, but we do go through those seasons where, culturally in the context of it, we drift. And so it is good to have those anchor points where we can come back to. Yeah, my sales have really plummeted since my mom went to heaven. My sales have plummeted.
Oh, because Mama was buying them all.
She was. Turns out she was buying them.
That is hysterical.
She'd buy them and give them away, but
isn't that funny?
Yeah.
God bless them. So, did you lose your mama recently?
Well, during COVID. Yeah.
Okay.
Both my parents are in heaven, so yeah.
Okay. Yeah, both of mine too, and they're rejoicing. They're having a big time. So I love it. But talking to Patrick Nix, he is, how long have you been at Fluellen?
7 years.
7 years. Okay. Great congregation. If you're looking for a congregation, guys, to be family with, they are wonderful. I love you, worship leader. He's a good friend, Nick Bryant. He is guitar teacher extraordinaire. I mean, really anything with strings, I think he can play.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he may even do keyboards. Does he do keyboards?
He can. Keyboard, drums, yeah.
So he does a little bit of all, and his girls are so much fun to watch, and the whole worship leading team is just fabulous. So just can't say enough about the congregation up here at Fluellen. They are a good bunch. You'll be blessed if you go there, and y'all do so much with the Hope. I mean, the Hope Center is y'all's baby, and the inspiration of that with those. We were at Recovery Court graduation yesterday. Had 4 graduate.
Awesome.
And it was just wonderful. And thank you, Tom Beasley, again for taking beautiful pictures. I didn't know I'm a novice photographer, but I haven't done any real photography much in the last year or two. And so when you don't do it, you're just not very good at it. And I was like, I need somebody with some skills coming in here. And he did a great job. And it was just a great day. It's just so wonderful. But just love seeing those lives renewed. It's so special, special. But I invited Patrick in, and I said, okay, what do you want to talk about? Now, unpack for me, what are we going to talk about today? You were saying.
Yeah, part of my job at the Harvest Association is to dive into trends and demographics. And so we got the most recent American Beliefs study, a nationwide study, and it's parsed down even locally. And it's from 2024. The last one they did was pre-COVID.
Right.
And so this really it's really telling about spiritual beliefs, community values, what are people most concerned about, and then why are people not going to church or why are people leaving church?
Okay, so let me make sure I understand the time frame. So they had done one prior to COVID.
Yep.
This is the first one since COVID, and it's from 2024.
Yeah, well, the last one they did was COVID year. It was 2020.
Okay.
And so
I think that should be very telling then, because we're looking what happened, because a lot of people left church and didn't come back.
Right.
I think it's kind of how it feels.
Right.
So, what did you find? I'm very curious.
Well, overarching, if you take a piece of pumpkin pie, one of my favorites, pecan pie.
Yeah.
I cannot wait.
I can't either. Me too. See, this is why we're friends. we're just on the same page with so much stuff.
If you take a piece of pumpkin, if you take a pumpkin pie and divide it in 5 pieces, 5 slices, in our community, 2 of those slices go to church.
Okay.
All right. So 20% of our community say they go to church. 1 slice says they go every week, and 1 slice they usually go about once a month.
Okay.
Okay. That's
so you got 2 slices that don't even go once a week.
Right. Yeah. But so
you've got 2
got
slices that go, but one of them every week and one of them once a month. So,
yes. So and that makes up 40% of our community.
Okay.
20% here, 20% there. And then you have 20% who have not really been to church, don't care about church, never been to, just they're the nuns.
The non-church.
Non-church, not interested, never been, that kind of thing. And then the other 40%, 2 more slices, are people who have been in church but have exited the church. They're called de-churched. They just, that maybe they're Christian, maybe they know about Jesus, maybe they've deconstructed or left the faith, or just were like in it as a young person and then left when they got a little older. But that's 40% of our community.
Wow.
Yeah. So
I can't imagine doing life without my church.
Right.
I can't. But a lot of people, I actually had a conversation with a friend, and they came to something that was church related, and I invited them to come to church, and she's like, she just didn't want to. She just did not want to. And I remember my dad, he's there was a guy, he was trying so hard. He was a Hispanic guy. He was trying to get him to come to church. He goes, "Oh, Sunday siesta." He was like, "Nope." And he was just like so frustrated. He's like, "Ugh." And it was, he just loved him so much, and he was trying to get him to the, to church. And he's like, Sunday siesta. And that was his answer. And I was like, oh, okay.
That's funny.
But
Well, there are all kinds of reasons, LaVern, why
Yeah.
people don't or are used to, but quit. In the survey, I found it really interesting because a lot of people feel like that church drift, moving away from the values they had, the music style they had. We were this way, and now we're not. So I left the church because they're not like I want the hymns or I want this. And if you use that as a baseline and move away from tradition, I'll actually two higher priorities. One that's almost twice as meaningful or impactful was a lack of friendships or meaningful connections. I found those at another place.
oh wow,
So I found them at sports, in my sports community. I found them in a hobby. I found them, at
Yeah.
wherever.
yeah,
I've said at church many times, like the song Cheers, should be about the church, not about a bar.
Everybody knows your name.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, everybody's glad you came.
Yeah,
That should be
yeah.
about a church, not the bar. But anyway, but they're finding those connections somewhere else.
Okay.
But here's the thing: 3 times as many people, more than worship style, more than what's the way the church looks, said that I don't go to church anymore because of conflict in the community.
In the community of the church.
In the community of the church, Christians don't know how to get along.
Ooh.
Yeah, and Jesus said you'll know them by your love for one another. And people are realizing, like, hey, you're not acting like Jesus.
Yeah.
There's a level of distrust, a lack of trust is in there. But when it comes down to it, Christians are too judgmental and they can't get along. Those are the top 2.
Really?
Way above all the other stuff.
Wow.
Way above all the other stuff.
Wow. Man, okay. Because, that's very interesting because as we were sitting down, I said, here's kind of what I want. How do you talk to people? And this is really, that kind of sets the conversation I was suggesting up.
Right.
Is when you theologically disagree with somebody, how do you have that conversation in love? Because I'm in a big theological disagreement right now with my body and have been for a long time. This is nothing new. Anybody who knows me, I do not believe we are right. Number one, about instrumental music. I think that's just, I don't get it. I love contemporary Christian music. I grew up with Stephen Curtis Chapman, guys, and was not but I never knew what he did because we didn't listen to music, spiritual music that had instruments behind it. It was not until I was in Nashville, and I've told this before, but I was going back home. And I was working in radio now. I was in LAC, WLAC. I was, doing overnight disc jockeying. And on Sundays, Brian Mason would come in and they would do a Christian show. And I can remember Amy Grant coming in. But this is before I realized, this is before Steve hit. And before he started releasing songs.
Right.
But he was writing everything. And I didn't know that. Well, right before that, I had to go home or something, and I had just started DJing at WLAC. And Herb is his dad and taught all of us to play guitar in West Kentucky. Chapman Music. And so I just love him to pieces. And so I pop into the music store one day, and I was like, hey, Herb, what's going on? I said, I'm working in a Nashville radio station now. Come down sometime, and I'll, maybe get you some tickets to something. That's me. I'm like in my 20s. I was like, I'm in radio. I was in that thing, And I was the kid, and I had no pull, at all. But I was trying to impress Herb, and didn't realize what Stephen was doing. Well, it was just a couple of weeks later, they had me start logging music for BMI and, all the music royalty stuff. I had to, you used to have to put that stuff in, because, this is in the 80s. Right. And so I'm putting stuff into the computer, and all of a sudden I'm seeing Stephen Curtis Chapman. His name's everywhere.
Wow. And
I was like, what in the world? And I can remember the next time I was in town, I popped into Herb's, and I was like, how long were you going to let me go on, without telling me what your son's doing, And this is when he was he was at Grand Ole, he was at the what's the name of our park? Opryland. He was at Opryland doing all the things because he was in the shows at Opryland when he first got to Nashville. And he just laughed at me. He was like, I know, because I mean, I had no idea. And of course, now he's had 50 number one hits?
Wow.
Something, or 100. I don't know how many number one hits. He hit some big mile marker. But, I grew up with that. And I grew up with the contemporary Christian music right there with Stephen and all of that. But we were not allowed to listen to anything religious that had instruments involved. So it was years before I ever really realized what they did. We had Ray Walker, that was the quartet kind of singer guy, from the, and we could listen to those kinds of things. But if it was a religious song, it could not have instruments behind it.
So it wasn't just in church; it was okay.
Yeah. No. We could not. And so very legalistic. And I understand that's all my parents knew. That's how they were raised, and so that's how they raised me. We were not allowed to sing Silent Night at Christmas because we're not supposed to add to or take from the Word, and we're not told to celebrate Christmas as Christ's birth. And so Daddy would lead Silent Night in July, but he would not in December. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
I mean, that's how legalistically I grew up. But I grew up in a wonderful community of faith. I'm so thankful for it. And I was not allowed as a girl to do anything. I felt called into mission work as a kid, but I was a girl.
Right.
It was just shut down. I think they were afraid I might try to get up and preach. I would have loved to have led singing. I've always sang. I would have loved to have been involved in that. But there was nothing. I was allowed to teach Bible class as long as it was just women,
Children.
or if it were younger men that had not yet accepted Christ.
Wow.
That's the only thing I was allowed to do in church. And I could make a casserole. I'm sorry. You can see there's a lot of stuff going on with me. I'm 62 years old, and this still bothers me.
Sure.
And I still feel like I'm fighting this fight.
Sure.
How do you do that in love?
Right.
But you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Right.
It's just, to me, it's just, and I'll have people that they'll say, well, LaVern, you're wrong about this. You're wrong about that. And then we can have that conversation in love, but I don't have too many people challenge me on it because I'm pretty well read,
Right.
And so if I'm right, then why are we not breaking down some of these walls? I don't know. It's a hard conversation. It's a hard conversation.
It is. When I was pastoring and working at a church, I was serving at a church that I would say was similar, although it was Baptist. It was, partly Amish, partly Baptist, kind of legalistic.
Yeah.
And so when we were pastoring and leading a church, we were figuring things out like our own convictions, and we were a little different from the big church or the mother church. And so while I'm teaching and influencing students at this more legalistic church, they asked me, for example, like, how do you teach? Like, for example, when I grew up, women only wore skirts or dresses or culottes,
Yeah.
And we would go skiing, and the girls could wear ski suits, but had to wear something over top that looked like a skirt.
Are you kidding? See, that's just it.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah, and they don't do that anymore.
No,
but but they asked me, and I was like, well, I believe the Bible does teach that sexes are unique and different in God, but that I just didn't go as far as that church, and they ended up letting me go because of that. And I had a talk with a pastor, and we sat down, and I really dove into it and became a little more well-read and understood some things about the scriptures that they use and how I feel like they're just yanking them right out of context and things. And so we sat down and talked about it. And in the end, the pastor just looked at me and said, that's a good point, but I have been this way for so long, I'm not going to change. And so he wasn't convinced, but he did understand and look at it and go, yeah, but I'm stuck in my ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people are. They're just they may agree with you or just agree to I'm not
to agree to disagree. Yeah. And so and I get that. And Madison's my family, but I'm just, it just seems like we've kind of doubled down on some of the things that I'm like, well, I thought we were kind of learning about this. And the conversations are that, well, we're going to discuss it. We're going to do all these things. But I'm like, man, but if we've had conversations in a lot of the Church of Christ that say, okay, we understand there's just instrumental music is not the thing. Okay, it has nothing to do with our salvation. It's just a preference. I like a cappella music. I love that I grew up with the tradition of a cappella. I can harmonize with just about anybody. I can go all over the place. But I was taught that, and so I like that I know how to do that. But man, there's nothing I love more than worship with some strings, and I love the whole of it.
LaVern, were you taught that though as a preference or as a biblical conviction?
I was taught that as a biblical convention because sing and make melody in your heart unto the Lord.
Right.
That's where it comes from.
Okay.
And so they say, because it says sing and make melody in your heart, then it doesn't say with a guitar or with drums or whatever. And so we can't. It comes back to that the scripture from Revelation that says don't add to or take from.
Right.
And of course, I know now that it's specifically talking about the revelation of John. It's not talking about, that statement has been used to say we can't add to or take from. It says women be silent, so we're just going to make y'all be quiet. I mean, all these things without understanding the context of when it was written and who it was written to or anything, the hermeneutic.
I heard that applied to the King James Version. Like the King James says you can't add or take away from, so everything after that. Yeah. And I was like, well, wait a minute, that was before in other Bibles too.
Yeah, but, man, it's so crazy. And I love having these conversations. But at what point do we have the conversation and then we just become the church? That's my dream, is to see us take and just be the church, just be the Madison Church, be the Llewellyn Church, be the Springfield Church, just be the church. And for a while, the Church of Christ had a Church of Christ meets here. That was kind of a thing we put on our buildings.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, that's a move in the right direction. But then it just, we're just the church. We're the body, and we're supposed to be united. But you're right. I find it fascinating that the reason why 40% of the people are saying they're not in church, going back to what you started with, is because Christians can't get along, and what was the other part? They disagree.
Too judgmental.
Too judgmental.
Yeah.
Yeah, and interesting, very interesting.
It is, and it seems like the longer a person, I don't know that this is factual, just from observation, but it seems like that the longer a person is in church, the more sure they get about what they have believed, and the less willing they are to be flexible or understanding with others who disagree. Yeah. Not that they're wrong, but that they feel more self-righteous about it, and they're not willing to listen. And we've lost civil discourse.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk sings that. People can't tolerate that anymore. And sadly, in church, we just shut people out, tune people out. We do not understand Christian liberty, the opportunity that you are a priest, you can go to God and God can speak to you instead of having to speak through me and tell you.
Every one of us.
Yep. We've lost that.
Kingdom's priest.
Right. Yeah.
That's all of us, girls too.
And speaking the truth in love.
Yeah.
I think that having grown up that way and then, kind of moving away from that, I see that, there are things that are Jesus top tier stuff. Mm-hmm. Like if I don't agree with you on that, there's not any other common ground. Mm-hmm. Who Jesus is and what he did. Okay. Mm-hmm. Salvation, how it's by grace through faith alone. Those kind of things.
Right.
But you and I can sit here and have fun talking about the end times, or about the gifts of the Holy Spirit, or about women in leadership. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I love the conversation. Yeah,
we can totally, but that is something that we have to understand. Not everything is one of those divisive, get up and leave, separate from you. Am I making sense there?
Yeah, you're making absolute sense.
Because,
Yeah.
I think that there are some, even you might even say secondary, and then way down the list.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Like way down the list would be, well, I'm a pumpkin pie with Cool Whip, not a Ready Whip kind of, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. As we approach Thanksgiving,
Amen.
We've mentioned pumpkin pie more than once,
Yes,
Patrick.
that's
I'm
right.
just saying, I think you and I have a problem. We're like all about the pumpkin pie here. But no, I get exactly what you're talking about. And that's one of the things, too, that I think my mother and I used to have these conversations all the time, bless her. And really more than that, when Dad and I, we loved to have these kind of conversations. And Mother would be like, y'all quit fighting. And I was like, we're not fighting, Mom. This is spirited debate, and I loved it. And that's one of the biggest things I missed about my dad is I didn't have anybody to push against that would talk to me complete honesty and complete love about where he's coming from. Because I saw my dad, I to this day believe if Daddy had lived long enough that I could have gotten him theologically where I am on some things. Now, it's like you said, when you're just in something so long, you can't break away from it. But I'll tell you, one of the things, divorce and remarriage in a lot of churches, divorce is like the scarlet letter. Well, my sister was married, remember, I'm from Kentucky. She was married, I'm wanting to say when she was 16, she may have been 17, but I was 2 years younger than her. And, was divorced very quickly because the person she married lied about who he was, and he was homosexual and was trying to marry to cover it up.
Wow.
And it's not a secret, and people it's just, but you didn't talk about it back then,
right? Yeah.
But you can imagine what that did to a young girl who had grown up in a very legalistic Church of Christ. And when you divorce, you just can't remarry unless it is for these reasons. But nobody was going to talk about that, because you just didn't. You didn't say, oh, by the way, why did they get divorced so quickly? Well, you just didn't talk about those things.
Right.
I mean, this was in the 70s. And it just sent her on a downward spiral. And she was also bipolar. We didn't know. And my sister ended up getting married 6 times in her lifetime. Okay. And a lot of it was because of that start of, well, I'm not even 18 years old and my life is over. Because she had, when the divorce happened, and again, it was all like, don't talk about it. And my brother's going, LaVern, shut your mouth. He's listening anyway. But I mean, it's no secret. And she's passed, and her first husband's passed. So I mean, it is what it is.
The shame of it is what spiraled everything. Yeah. And I that's something we talk about a lot, because I'm just like, we've got to get it out of the dark. We've got to, the stigma, the shame of it. That's a work of Satan. And guilt or conviction, that can be from God.
Yeah.
But Jesus deals with guilt at the cross. Conviction is work of the Holy Spirit. Yeah. But shame is nowhere in there. Shame's something else.
Yeah.
But that does come even from religion. And churches use that guilt and shame. And that's demonic. That's sad.
And the thing is, too, my dad, where he was, before everything happened with my sister, his views on divorce and remarriage were very legalistic, just like he had been raised in the way I'd been raised. Well, in Lipscomb, my sister, she was brilliant, just brilliant. And so when the divorce happened and she went ahead and she finished high school, and Dad was like, okay, you need to go to college and just get away. And so she applied to Lipscomb, and they denied her admission because she was divorced.
Really?
Yep. I was originally planning on coming to Lipscomb and completely changed where I was going to go to college because of that. Ended up at Freed-Hardeman. And because my original intent had been, and I ended up at Lipscomb later, but because it was a Church of Christ school and she was divorced, she was not allowed to come as a student. It doesn't matter how smart and how good her grades were. None of it. She was divorced, so she couldn't come. So my dad was like, there's something wrong with that. And so he got into a deep study about divorce and remarriage, completely changed. And I don't want to put words in my dad's mouth, but his understanding and the theology around divorce and remarriage completely changed.
Right.
Completely changed. It's not the unforgivable sin, he would say.
Right.
Things happen. You can be forgiven and you move on. I mean, and again, Dad passed in 2012. I don't want to try to say this is what, because I'm not sure exactly what his understanding was of
Sure.
it, but when you have to face something, you dig deeper into it. And so that's been my thing is, I've always felt called into the ministry and was never given a pathway from it because I grew up in the 60s and 70s. And so it made me push against it and go, this doesn't seem right.
Right.
So because of our situation with dealing with my sister's marriages and stuff, it made Dad go, I gotta look at this better because I love her and I need to help her, and so you dig into stuff. And so does that make sense?
Yeah, well, churches are really good about saying, hey, this is our official policy. And churches should be creedal and confessional, but again, that ought to be about Christ and salvation,
right?
Maybe not about everything else. And so, but you look in the New Testament, the Berean church, what were they known for? They dug in for themselves. They knew
Berean, I always love to say,
So
to see what he said, if what he said is true, is it true?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, and then Paul said in Romans, I think it's 14, he said, let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind. And he was talking there about feasts and festivals. And I mean, like you would bring that into Halloween and Christmas and things. Like you need to do the study for yourself and be persuaded in your own mind.
Yes.
And not like, here's our church policy. So how does a Christian who's in that continue to maybe push against the system, speak truth? Well, you have to speak it in love like Jesus. But then if you're going to stay in that system, you have to know I'm in the Southern Baptist system, and so there's things here too. Yeah. And so it's like, do I stay here and keep pushing and keep standing, or do I step outside? And there's a huge move to the non-denominational, like we're autonomous, we're our own church, we're our own group, that kind of thing. There's merit for that, but there's also merit for these groups to come together and stand together.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Well, see, and I don't think, and like going kind of finishing up with my dad, I believe because of that, my dad and I could have had some conversations, and I'd be like, go study the work of Kenneth Bailey, Dad. This is fascinating. I could have I could have pointed him to some things I've discovered, and I think his mind would have changed on some things. I don't know. But when you were talking about but I kind of think it might have on some of this stuff because Daddy.
But he was willing to study, though.
That was his pleasure.
Yeah.
He loved to study. But as I've mentioned a couple of times, as we cleaned out Mom and Daddy's house last year after Mama passed, and he was limited by his library. He never got online. The internet was just really, I was trying to get him online to see what he could have access to, but he liked the book. But he was limited by his library, and it was primarily a Church of Christ library that supported the theology he had grown up with.
Sure.
So how can you, and he would study different things, but his library was a CFC library. But this Church of Christ, and I don't think a lot of people realize this, every single church stands independently with a group of elders. We're not governed by, y'all have like the Baptist Association. Right. Church of Christ doesn't have that. Right. We are, I choose to be at Madison Church of Christ, but I've accepted the fact that we have this body of elders that lead us and decide what this group, this body, this group, what they're going to focus on. I've accepted that out of obedience for Christ. I don't agree with them, and they know that, but I love them, and I've accepted that.
But being part of the CFC, CFC,
CFC, I say Church of Christ.
Oh, CFC. Okay.
CFC.
Okay. So being a part of that, though, those elders know some unwritten rules or expectations.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And so that's the same in the we have the association, we have the convention. None of those make decisions for us.
Okay.
But it's not like the Methodist Conference or something like that.
Sure.
But they undergird it. But in that, there are some unwritten rules.
Gotcha.
Saddleback, Rick Warren decided to ordain women pastors, and they exited the church.
Gotcha.
So they're not Southern Baptist anymore.
They're just Saddleback.
Saddleback Church, yeah.
Yeah.
And so, there's a similar thing there, but a lot of unwritten rules.
Yeah.
And so, it's frustrating. In our group, it's about, of course, they had the sex scandal, and it's like, let's bring it to light. Let's quit sweeping it under the rug, and the folks who were doing it, let's make sure that doesn't happen again.
Right.
And then financial transparency, there's some things there that it's like, are we going to keep pushing, keep standing, or are we going to, I don't want to say just give in, but are we just going to decide this is our tribe and we don't agree with everything, but we're going to walk with you in fellowship and in a cause to continue to reach the world, but having these pushbacks and disagreements. I just watched a video from Jordan Peterson, and I don't know all of his stuff, but this was great. He was talking about, if you take your hand and move it across like this, he said it may appear smooth, but it comes in increments. He said, but if you will take your other hand and push against it and move across, he said, you can actually move slower and more consistent. And he said, it's like when a man is on a tightrope, and he said, he doesn't, you look like, from hundreds of feet up, it looks like he's balanced, but he actually is never balanced. He's constantly fighting the tiny imbalances. He's working, I'm getting too far over here. And I think that's, if we're people of faith, I think that's where we have to be, like never assuming I am totally, being willing to be pushed against or fighting the imbalance in our own life. Because, I can see imbalance in other people's, but the real imbalance, the real lies I have to fight against are the ones I tell myself, the ones that are in me. And so I have to constantly work at that. And that's what, Jesus said, you can judge, you can discern. Make sure you judge yourself first. Get that thing out of your own eye. And so, it's really easy to see other people's faults and other people's issues. And man, you're off with that. And, I have figured it out, but Jesus says, hey, look in the mirror, man.
It's so interesting that you said that. Chrissy McClellan's the first one that kind of put me on this, but she has, and this is not anything I don't think that is published. She does a lot of publishing. She's got a lot of books now through Lifeway and all of that. But there's one lesson that she did she has a Newland's Bible program that you can subscribe to, and there's one lesson in there called Ezer Kenegdo. And she, you can get a T-shirt, Ezer Kenegdo, and that's the first words that God spoke over a woman. And Ezer,
Rachel Culver just put her picture is up with that, and I was just like, hey, that's cool.
Yeah. But that's where I saw it first was Christy. And when you really understand what Ezer Kenegdo, and I don't have my notes in front of me to completely break it down, and I've since studied it from other people, and I'm fascinated by this, but Ezer Kenegdo, the first word spoken over woman, is to be Ezer, I think Ezer is the word that means help. That's where we get helper suitable. Right? Okay, so Ezer is the word used to describe woman, but it's also the word that's used to describe God as he helps Israel. So is that in a subservient way, or is it in a way of we're serving? And then Kenegdo means to stand in opposition to and push against. So when you talk about that pushing against, that's literally what Kenegdo means, is to be in face on, in opposition to. The Christy just does an excellent job unpacking it. But it's fascinating to me that I believe at one of the foundations of what we do with women is that we don't properly interpret what God first said about woman, and that she is an Ezer Kenegdo. She is, standing face to face in opposition to, and when we're called as, I believe that, I don't see if I'm being compared to what God was to Israel as a helper, that doesn't mean I'm subservient to you. And a lot of I think one of the biggest issues that we get into with women's roles is we read where Paul's talking to married couples about how you're supposed to submit to each other and all those things. And we try to make that be part of what we do in the church. And it's like, well, he was talking to married couples.
Yeah, he wasn't telling.
Be super careful about that. Yeah,
telling women to be subservient to men. He was telling women, a wife, to submit to her husband, and when he told husbands
equally,
husbands to submit to their wives.
Thing.
Yeah.
I have things I submit to my husband. He has things he submits to me. It's a marriage thing.
Yes,
has nothing to do with what we have. In my opinion, and again, this is my understanding of it. But the Ezer Kenegdo, you need to really understand that Ezer Kenegdo thing. And there's also a and I don't know if I got this from Christy or who I got this from, but there was a study that was talking about how that if to be in the full image of God, we are created in the image of God, male and female, he created them. It's only when men and women, and I do think this is in the McClellan study, talking about it's only when man and woman stand together that you fully reflect the image of God. And that's a Jewish understanding. That's something that is something that comes down from the Torah,
Okay.
you know. And so I find that just absolutely opens up all kinds of interesting notions that we're not fully reflecting God's image unless we're standing together as men and women. So what does that do to how we should be leading? I kind of want to, I look at President Trump and think, okay, you need to have a female there with you, not as a vice president, but as equal partners leading us. And, you know, and I'm not saying him and Hillary, I'm talking about in the same, be of a like mind. But
Right.
I'm like, what would happen? What would happen if in our leaderships across the world, instead of having Netanyahu, you had Netanyahu and then an equal part of a woman that's standing and they're balancing each other. And the same thing here in America. What if we had equal parts that were balancing each other and bringing, would we be having leadership that's truly in the image of God, and would things really change? I don't know. And again, that's something, I haven't said that publicly, but it's been churning in my brain for a while. So,
Well, I can tell you in family, I don't know about the institution of government, how that would look, but I know in family, I can see that my wife, most of our problems for the first 2 decades came from, keeping it real here, right?
yeah, I love it. That's great.
That were from my wife, who is a very strong person. Not, I mean, I'm talking about spiritual strength. I'm talking about wisdom. She's, I mean, strong. But her strength, it was and she's a submitting, loving, yielding person to me. Even when I don't live like it and shouldn't deserve it, right? Okay.
Right.
But a lot of our problems came from my inability to let her, my insecurity,
Gotcha.
my fear of that. Not that I was thinking I've got to, keep this person pushed down, but it was my inability to be stood up to.
Oh, very
Okay.
good.
Pushed.
My husband and I've had some issues like that too, because I'm pretty strong-willed.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all figured that out or not.
So, the best times and the last 8 or 10 years have been marked more by what you're saying. I've never heard it put that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's when those two can really, and I love that passage. I mean, that passage of the image of God talks about domain and care of the earth. It talks about the love and relationship and the dynamic part of these two differences coming together. And then when sin broke it, I mean, you even look at the curse and the break of it, it's going to be like, your desire is going to be to lord or rule over, and so our challenge after the fall is still to try to come back to that,
right?
That union, together.
Yes.
And
Find shalom again. This is something. It's almost 10 till, Patrick. I've got 2 ads I've got to do.
Okay.
And so, but I'll just kind of purse this, and you can think about this while I'm doing my spot. Something we talk about in Celebrate Recovery all the time. And it's kind of the mantra, confess your sins to each other so you can pray for each other so you can be healed. It's that power of testimony, confessing to each other. I said, but sin, and this is something else I got from Chrissy McClellan, because I heard her say this the first time. She goes, sin is not, what did you do? Sin is anything that robs you of the shalom that God intended for you at the point of creation. He wanted us to live in shalom. So sin, it's very often things we do, but it's really probably equally as often things done to us, or things that just happen because we're in a fallen world. Sin is the things that break our peace. And it can be any and all kinds of things. And when you share those things with each other, that's when you heal, and that's when you can pray for each other. And like, oh yeah, me too. I'm going through that. Yeah, me too. Oh yeah, I did that. I shouldn't have done that. You talking about how that, the problems y'all had in the first 2 decades of your marriage. Sounds like my husband and I had some of the same things. Well, what a great thing as couples to say, yeah, I grew through. Can you imagine? We're going to be celebrating our 37th anniversary coming up.
Wow.
And how good is it for somebody that's been married as long as I have, or as long as y'all have had, to be able to sit down and talk to somebody that's in the first couple of years of marriage and say, be careful of this. Be careful of this. Have these conversations. Confess your sins to each other. The stuff that kept you out of peace, so you can pray for each other and you can be healed and maybe keep others from avoiding those things.
Yeah, it is. It's such a blessing when you see a young couple who is standing to, our son and daughter-in-law, and you just see it and go, man, you're 20 years ahead of the game.
Yes.
Go,
Yes, and it's like you think, I wish I'd had that early on, but it's all good.
Yeah.
We all learn. I do have to do some ads here. We're going to talk about, let's start with the UPS store. It's so funny. I was talking to Deborah. She works at the UPS store, y'all know, and Deborah Grant. And she was, yesterday, I'm getting ready for this wedding and my dress needs a new zipper. Okay. And I miraculously found this sweet Roxanne. She is fixing it for me up in Greenbrier. We'll talk more about her. I'll get her in here. She's putting the new zipper in my dress and even letting it out a little bit because it's a little tight. The last minute, right before the wedding. And I was talking to Deborah, came to witness those wonderful graduates at the recovery court yesterday. And I was saying something about the wedding and the dress. And I said, trying to find somebody altering. And she said, Roxanne. And I said, how did you know that? She goes, I work at the UPS store. I know everything. Everybody comes into the UPS store. She says, so if you're ever looking for something, and I never thought about this at UPS, but if you're like, I just need somebody to do this, go in and ask Deborah and say, do you know anybody that does, I don't know, can repair my headlights? I don't know, something just, something very specific. Who are the plumbers in the area? Who are the handymans in the area? Who are the ones that, do this or that? They're going to know because 9 times out of 10, they've been in there to either ship something, get something printed, do something like that, ship something back to Amazon. And I thought, I never thought about that. So there's another reason why you need to get to the UPS store. If you're looking for, you remember those websites where you could go on and you would subscribe and you'd be like, well, who's the best handyman? They can tell you. So go into the UPS store and just have a conversation with Deborah. They're at 513 Memorial Boulevard. They have got all kinds of, their coupons, still the large format printing. They've still got that coupon out. They didn't change it this month. But remember, any coupon that they issue, if you hang on to it, it's good until, you just have to hang on to it. It never expires, but they'll put out new ones. And they always have a special, you can fill out a questionnaire and be entered for a gift certificate from Amazon. They are your print store. They are your store. They can do graphic design for you, large format printing. They have got mailboxes if you want to go in and make sure you don't have to worry about porch pirates. They have got all those things that are ready and available for you. And yes, it's where we drop off our Amazon packages, but they are so much more. Great people, some of the nicest people I've ever dealt with. I can go in there and it be just packed, but they are always cordial and they get you in and out of there so quickly. They're open 7 days a week. Monday through Friday, they're open from 8 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. Saturday, they're open from 9 to 5. Sunday, they're open from 12 to 5. So every day you can go in there and get great service from the UPS store, and every one of them are notaries in there too. Just great stuff. Go and see them today. The UPS store, our UPS store right here in Springfield, 513 Memorial Boulevard. Tell them U-Turn sent you. Okay, back to what we were talking about. I forgot what I said. Oh, talking about the sin being the robbing you of the shalom.
Mm-hmm.
And any thoughts on that?
I hadn't heard it expressed that way.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful though, because it gets to the root of its impact, its effect, and especially in that confession part, because that's where the wound is. That, and that's where the healing has to take place.
For sure.
Sin is such in Scripture. You can go into even like the difference of a trespass and an iniquity and a regular sin, and how some of them were intentional. I crossed the line and I knew it, and then a lot of them are sins. Like I didn't know God's heart on it. I don't understand. I'm driving too fast and I didn't pay attention to the sign.
Yeah.
I didn't even know. Well, the officer's like, well, you still broke the law.
Right.
And so there are things that David prayed, like, Lord, reveal even to me these things that have been hidden from me where I have grieved you, and it's such a deep thing, but I even think theologically it's a beautiful thing that we can understand, and that God made a way and provision through those sacrifices, but then through Jesus, and then, in confession and repentance and sharing and healing. And see, it's all the way through that thread of being able to find that hope or healing, in him. That shalom, that peace, that wholeness, that coming back to being, one again.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. We're talking with Patrick Nix. He's with Ellen Church, and Flew Ellen Church. I didn't say. Tell them what time y'all meet and how they can come be a part of your fellowship.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Sundays at 11 we gather. That's kind of the standard time. We have Bible studies before at 10 o'clock on Sundays. And we have a great group that meets every Wednesday at 6:30. We have other times where we get together. The men meet on a night. The ladies meet on a night. And huge groups of people who will come together for that. Sometimes 20, 25 men or women that gather and just study the Bible and share just kind of gathering and sharpening each other, praying with each other, doing community. A beautiful thing. And then every Friday night we have, I guess it'd be our version of CR. It's some worship and some support, some preaching or teaching.
Yeah.
We do that every Friday night.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So do y'all have anything coming up for fall? Are y'all going to do like a fall festival kind of thing?
We do.
A lot of times y'all do.
Yep.
So I was wondering, what have you got coming up with that?
So on the 25th, we've got a glow in the dark. We gather at the church, we eat some chili, we hang out, play a few games, and then we all load up. Hundreds of people load up on these trucks and hay rides.
Nice.
And we go down Flew Ellen Road to another farm, a family in the church, and they have set up all across this field these glow in the dark, and so the kids and families jump out, and these little glow sticks that are attached to candy all across the field. And so then they just go out in this dark field, and then you just get to see this glowing field just kind of it's really cool. So everybody's putting their glow in the dark stuff in their baskets, in their buckets, and then we all load up and we head back to church and just kind of eat candy and hang out for a little while. Yeah.
Fun.
Yeah.
I love that. That's a neat idea. I love that. And so y'all do that on the Sunday before Halloween.
It's the 25th.
The 25th is a Sunday, isn't it? Or because is the 24th on a
25th is a Saturday.
It is a Saturday.
Yep.
Okay.
Saturday evening, 5 o'clock, and that's what I said. We'll get together and eat chili, and then it'll turn dark, and then we'll run down the road and do that. Yeah, we have a great time.
Fun. Well, I had mentioned to you that Leah Blocker might be popping in for a minute. Today being the last day of fall break, she's got things going with her little girl. But the 25th that morning is the Boo Bash Dash, which is a fundraiser for CASA.
Okay.
And that is court-appointed special advocate. And they're just an amazing program. But the kids dress up and they do a walk or a run, and it's just a whole lot of fun. And it starts at it starts at the fairgrounds, I think. I'll have to get with her and get the confirmation on that. But put that on your calendar for the 25th too, and then you can go out and hang out with y'all then in the evening. That sounds wonderful. That sounds like a big time. Anything else we're missing? We're going to be out of time, and I've got to do another sponsor here. Tell them how to find your book, and tell them what your book's about. Go ahead and unpack that for us.
Oh, man. Okay.
Tell them what the book's about.
Okay. So it's about a man who steals a bunch of money and leaves town and gets caught and gets saved. He becomes a Christian. He's converted and redeemed. And so he returns back to his point of origin where he offended and was offended. It's the story of Philemon in the Bible, but the story of the slave who returned home. And it's kind of that story, but that letter is only like half a page in the Bible.
Yeah.
And so we kind of read between the lines, like what happened before and after. And then that's about 180 pages. And then the rest of the book is about what if we took that kind of freedom and that kind of gospel application in our lives, and what would it look like for us in our relationship with other people, in our relationship with money and with church and with the hobbies and addictions and things that we get in, those kind of things.
It's good stuff, guys. It's good stuff. And I loved it. When you said Philemon, I'm like, yes. Because you're like you said, just does not get enough attention. And it's profound when you really look at it and read it. You're like, what was that like?
It's one of those that it'll turn you upside down and wreck you.
I had Marty Solomon with the Bema podcast. First time I heard him say something about, you got to think about Philemon. It's not only did he write it to Philemon about Onesimus, he CC'd the entire church. It's like you think about email, and it's like, because he wrote this to the church,
right?
And it's like, oh, by the way, because you can imagine people going up to Philemon, later and saying, "What'd you do about Onesimus?"
Right.
And it's like he held him accountable.
Right.
And I love the way Marty put that. He's like, it's like he CC'd the entire church on the story of Philemon.
Right.
And I think that's hysterical because it's funny. You can think about it in the whole email kind of concept. Let me do my last break and then we'll come back and say bye. I'm talking with Patrick Nix from the Llewellyn Church. And before we go, though, I want to talk about Barry and Rebecca Richards with Exit Prime Realty. Y'all know we talk about them all the time because they're my longest running full-time sponsor. Lately, I've been looking at my listings. I'll kind of go through spurts on this, but I love to go through and see what Barry has sent me. I'm on an email list with him, and he'll send me all these great listings of these properties that are coming up. There's one, let's see, when did he send this one? This one came out at 5 a.m. 2136 Neil Lane in Cross Plains, 3 beds, 3.5 baths, 4,000 square foot. The price has dropped on this one. It's in the 640, I think, is the listing on this. He's got it, but absolutely beautiful piece of property. If you're, looking in Cross Plains, man, I tell you, this is a beautiful home. 3 beds, 3.5 baths. Again, 4,000 square feet. Go and reach out to Barry if you're interested in that listing. And there's just tons of them. Let's see. There's one that, and here's one that's in a different price range. This is $399. This is 6074 Lamont Road in Springfield, 4 beds, 2 baths. So that's when you see you say, okay, here's the bottom line of how much I can spend. You want to just see listings in that? He can make sure that's what he sends you. Same thing with Rebecca. Wherever it is you're wanting to live, they are Cross Plainians, so they specialize in Robertson County properties. They've been here like 30 years, about the same time I got to Robertson County. It's home. So they specialize in Robertson County properties, but they also buy and sell in the surrounding counties and across the state line in Kentucky because they understand Kentucky. They're like me. They grew up in Kentucky. What does it mean if you're going to have an income tax? What's that going to do to your bottom line? How much home can you buy? You got to look at all that before you get into the market and say, I'm ready to buy a home. How much home can you qualify for? If you're wanting to sell your property, how much is it worth? They'll do a free market analysis for you. Barry's marketing background is expertise when it comes to presenting property with videography, photography, drone footage, all the things that you need to make sure you're presented properly. They are the entire package right here in Cross Plains. He has his brokerage office here in Springfield. She has an agency office up in White House. Together, they come together and they bring you Exit Prime Realty, a new branch in the Exit tree. They've been with Exit from the very beginning. Rebecca, when she was wanting to get into real estate, she was like, okay, what can I do to make sure I've got every T crossed and every I dotted? And it was the Exit team that did that for her. So reach out to them today. Exit Prime Realty, Barry and Rebecca Richards. Here's her phone number. You can go to sellwithbecky.com, sellwithbecky, or buy, B-U-Y, robertscounty.com, but you can reach out to them, 615-504-7425, 615-504-7425, and let them know U-Turn sent you. And with all that said, too, I do want to remind you to go out to Bernard Farms Custom Cuts and Market, one of our other sponsors. Just got to tag them real quick because they're closed now on Sunday and Monday. So if you want to get by and see them, today you can get by there. You can go by tomorrow. They're open 7 to 4 today and tomorrow. When I talked to her earlier this week, they still had a few beef cuts in the fresh case. They've always got great frozen stuff. Go by and have a pork burger. She says it'd be a great day to sit out on the porch and have a pork burger for lunch or get some breakfast right now. They're open right now. But you can go by and see them in Orlinda. They're at 7536 Clay Gregory Road in Orlinda, and tell them U-Turn sent you there too. All right, Mr. Patrick Nix, any parting thoughts before we go? We're a little bit over, but that's okay.
No, man, I love coming in.
It's fun. It's fun talking to you. I just love these conversations, and like I said, we'll just have to, get you in on a regular basis too, and start. I mean, well, as much as we can.
Sure.
You'll be my phone call whenever my Fridays don't work out. How's that sound?
It's fine.
Because we like to bring the girls in because, we like to talk to Rachel and all that. But and Rachel, I'm glad you're healing up. She says she's going to have 20/20 vision after her cataract surgery.
Wow. Good.
Yeah, cool.
Good.
So, but anyway, thank you. Go see them. Tell them again how to come and join you for service. Tell them the times. before we
Flu
go.
Ellen Church, Sundays at 11. That's the best time and best place to join us. Find us online, fluellen.org.
And it's just a wonderful little congregation. Just find a church, y'all, this week. Find a church.
Yep.
Find a place to be a part of the body, and you will be forever blessed. Thank you for joining us. Monday, we'll be talking with Caleb Stratton. It's Law Enforcement Day, so we'll be talking with him, and then we'll get to talk with Mayor Vogel on Tuesday. And then again, I got to head to a wedding. Lee Marie will take the helm from Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday next week. But thank you guys for joining us, and we're back to school Monday, kids. Fall break this is your last day. Enjoy it. God bless you guys. Thank you for joining us. This is 1100 WSGI. God bless. Have a wonderful day and weekend.